Hi, beautiful souls. Welcome to Mind Ease with Stella, your space for calm, clarity, and Christ-centered growth. Today, we continue with part 2 of the topic Reincarnation. It is said in Genesis chapter 3 verse 19, "From dust thou art, and unto dust thou shalt return." And as far as this is concerned, there are many contradictions and there is much ambiguous talk about it. But human beings don't make an effort to pursue this issue and search for the truth. What is it that will rise? Who will enter the glory of God? And what is at the bottom of this last day? So many ideas circulate about it. The many things that are supposedly to happen on this last day are on the last judgments. Yet, this last day and this last judgment has taken place a long time ago. Namely, at the time when Christ had fulfilled this mission. And thus, human beings don't want to think further on these things. And it isn't their wish at all to be reborn. But it isn't for human beings to decide on that. Doesn't one pray, "Thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven"? Therefore, if it is the will of God that something is to take place, human beings cannot evade it. For God's will truly be done in heaven and on earth. Another explanation why human beings don't believe in reincarnation is certainly because they don't understand why they should be reborn. They do not understand because they don't know the underlying purpose of their lives. They don't know the purpose of creation, and consequently, they are of their opinion that their view is correct. But who said it is necessarily correct? There is so much of God's wisdom in reincarnation, but not only His wisdom is given expression, but also His mercy, which reigns over His own. Yet, human beings are not willing to accept it. Though they wouldn't lose anything by accepting the fact of being reborn. Human beings will never lose anything by accepting that they will be reborn. You will not lose. In fact, you have more to gain from the growth of your soul, which always happens every time one comes to earth. There is always growth. There is always lessons that shape your soul, that align your soul to the will of God. Therefore, just as one experiences the coming and going of nature, necessary to further develop creation, human beings too, who are placed in this world, are included within this framework, necessitating the coming and going and rebirth. Life on earth is a test for everyone, and this test must be passed in order to take a step forward in development. Just like you must pass your test in order to go to the next grade and the next grade and the next grade, so is life. And if one will take time to think more about the spiritual realm, the spiritual life, and one's ascent, one will be able to automatically come to the conclusion that there are in fact different levels of spiritual ascent. Firstly, there are different levels in nature and in that which moves around human beings and is needed for their lives. And secondly, why human beings themselves, who are the most important and the highest creature living on this earth, even they are at different levels. I must say that even the human beings are at different levels of ascent. Thus, a thinking human being must realize that upon his return to eternity, he will not share his place with all those with whom he lived on earth. For instance, He will not share his place with a criminal whose only aim was to deceive or harm his fellow man. Particularly, as a Christian, he should give it some thought. You surely should give some thought to the fact that God is a just God. God is a merciful God. And also, God is a judge. Therefore, you do not expect to spend the same place in eternity as somebody who has made, killed, done all those things to human beings here on earth in eternity. Usually, particularly Christians, as a Christian, you should give this some thought. I know very well the opinion of those Christians who say that they have been cleansed from all sins by the blood of Christ. Well, could one really call this justice if God, who is praised by pious Christians as the loving and just Father, were to bring together in the spiritual world all of them, irrespective of the spiritual attitude they used to have? No. Will it be just if a person who had conducted himself throughout his life in a truly noble fashion, making sacrifices for others and gaining valuable merits, making sacrifices, then had to share his place in heaven with someone whose only aim on earth was to cause harm to others? Is it reasonable that both should be ushered to the same place, just as human beings believe that Christ's blood washed away all sins, even those of criminals? People should think about this and realize that this certainly cannot be in accordance with the divine laws. God has structured his laws and order in a most wonderful way. These laws were established down to the last detail at the time of the last judgments. Long time ago, Christ, the Lord and Redeemer of mankind, was granted the right to hold these last judgments. It took place after his death on the cross, when he invaded the nether world and defeated his adversary Lucifer. That was when this last judgment was held. There was conviction, and the rights of Satan were taken away from him, thus making it no longer possible for him to totally victimize human beings. This is Mind Ease with Stella, your space for calm, clarity, and Christ-centered growth.